Since layers are so important, they're actually going to get multiple lessons. This next one is how to work with multiple layers between different Photoshop documents. So we have an example here, and I took this photo. This is Mount Hood, just outside of Portland, Oregon. I took this photo and I had my camera locked down on a tripod. One of the things that I realized is if I focus up close, I get, let me zoom in for you. I get, by the way, there's a zoom tool down here, okay? And that will zoom in. If you hold down the Alt or Option key, it'll zoom out. The keyboard shortcuts for that are the Command key on the Mac and plus to zoom in or minus to zoom out, or it'd be the Control key on a PC, plus, minus, zooms in or out. All right, so we're zoomed in. I get everything up front, the foreground, nice and sharp. But what happens is because that's where I focused, right? What happens is that my background kind of soft. You know, the mountain's not quite as crisp as it could be. All right, so let's zoom back out here. Let's check out this image, shot on a tripod just seconds after the first one. So now, if I zoom in, see the foreground? Not so sharp, right? Because I focused back here. So if I take a look at the difference here, I'll zoom in for you. All right, take a look. That's the sharp one. And that's the one where I focused up close. So the flowers and all the brushes and everything up close were sharp, but the mountain and back isn't. So we can use layers. We can use Photoshop's capability to combine these two together. This is something we couldn't do in Lightroom, right? If I were using Lightroom to edit, do color adjustments and tonal corrections and contrast and things, I could do a lot of that, but I couldn't merge these two photos together the way that I'd want. So what do? Well, we open up the first image, all right? And the best way to think of this is let's say you had a Microsoft Word document open or an email, and you had text, and you wanted to copy it from one document to another document. What would you do? You would select the text, you would copy, then you'd go to the other document and you'd paste. So we can do the same thing here inside of Photoshop. All right, we can select. I'll take my rectangular marquee tool and I'll click and drag. All right, I'm selecting the document. I could just as easily, I could go select all. It selects the whole document. Then I go edit, copy. By the way, I'm not going to do this again. The universal keyboard shortcut for copy is Command C on the Mac or Control C on a PC. Everywhere, every other program, not just Photoshop, Microsoft Word, your email program, whatever you use, copy is Command C or Control C, and paste is Command or Control V. All right, so just let's get that out of the way because I'm using the keyboard shortcuts after this. So we copy it. Now it's saved into the computer's memory. All right, now we go over to our other image. Notice one layer here. It's got a background layer. Well, if I go edit, paste, or Command or Control V, look at what happens. Now there's another layer here. So I've got my background layer and I've got this layer right on top of it. I've just added a layer from one image to another image and they're stacked up on top of each other. Now, what do I see? I see this top layer. Remember, it's like you're looking down at the layer stack. Whatever's on top is what you're going to see. That's why I see this. If I click the little eyeball icon and turn it off, and I don't see this because this is covering this if you were think of looking at it from the top down. All right, a couple of little things about this. If I go back to this image over here and I take my brush tool and I scribble like we did earlier, notice this didn't get changed. They are no longer linked together. There's no link between this image and this layer in this image now. So don't think there's any link or anything like that. In fact, I can close this image and hop back over to this one. Nothing will change. All right. They're totally independent of each other. All right. So now that I got them together, what would I want to do? Well, I want to bring the best of both worlds together in this example. All right. I want the good foreground, which is on top. And if I hide that, here's the good background back here. See, the mountain's nice and sharp, but we're a little fuzzy up front here. But the one on top is the good foreground. So what could I do? Well, remember we had the eraser tool. The eraser tool erases parts of a layer. So I'm just going to make my brush really large here so that I don't have to do a lot of painting. And then all I have to do is erase. So if I erase, okay, and we're going to come up here and decrease our hardness setting. I want a softer brush. You can see the edges got kind of harsh there. I want a nice soft. In fact, we can click any of the presets there too. But I want a nice soft brush because it'll feather. All right. So you see what's happening is I'm going through and I'm erasing the softer background from the top one. Now look at these layer thumbnails. All right. You can even see it's gone. And so because it's gone, because that top area is gone, what's happening? Remember, you're looking at it from the top down. This is now transparent. Because it's transparent, what would you see? You'd see whatever's under it. Well, what's under it? Let me turn that layer off. This image. This image, I just turned the top one off. This is what was under it. When I turn the top one back on, what's the only visible part left of this image? The only visible part is the bushes and the flowers and everything in the foreground. It's the only visible part that's left. I erased everything else. So when I turn it back on, since we're going with our top-down view, that's what I see first. I see that overlaid. It doesn't mean the other stuff is gone. It's still there, but I see it overlaid on top of it because there's nothing here. It's like it's poking through this layer and it's showing me whatever's underneath. What was underneath is the sharp version of the mountain. Okay, so I'm going to back up. I'm going to undo. Let's just step back here. Step backward a few times. All right, let's just review this. Turn off. In fact, you want a little tip? If you double click the name of a layer, it'll let you rename it. So I'll call this Sharp Mountain. Click OK. Let's double click this one. I'll call this Sharp Foreground. Just double click right over the name and you can edit it right there. So we have Sharp Mountain, Sharp Foreground. Okay, so this is the top layer, Sharp Foreground. That's why I see a nice sharp foreground, blurry mountain. We're going to go to our eraser tool. Again, you can control the size and the hardness of the brush. Usually soft edge brushes work, bring the hardness down to 0. And then I'm just going to paint. And what's happening? It's erasing away that top layer and it's showing me what's underneath. How does it know what's underneath? That's probably a little sloppy there on the erasing, but it's showing me what's underneath. What's underneath it? This layer. Remember, top-down view. Imagine yourself looking down. This is a piece of paper on top. This is a piece of paper that's right below it. Where this is transparent, you'll see what's below it. Where this is not transparent, that's what you're going to see. So sharp foreground, that's what we see on this layer. Sharp mountain's what we see right behind it. Okay, so that's a little bit about layer stacking and how you're able to build things on top of each other, how the whole layer stacking works. And most importantly, though, that when you do open one image and start dragging things from one image to another image, they're not related anymore. Okay, and that's another really important point here. They're not related anymore, so you don't have to worry, well, if I open an image and put it into another one, am I affecting the original or anything like that? You're not. They're not linked together. Whatever layer gets put over here is totally independent of the original image where it came from.